Today I'm in conversation with Adam Naisbitt, founder of DigitallyEngaged, the UK's online marketing think tank, and most recently Promethos, a marketing solution company hoping to change the way marketers manipulate content. Adam and his team are one of the few companies that BBC technology correspondent Rory Cellan-Jones has praised. As part of today's discussion, we find out why. Adam, it's not every day that you get a quote from Rory Cellan-Jones, technology correspondent at the BBC. Tell me, how did you get it? What was the reason? And why you described your team at DigitallyEngaged as very smart folks?
So this is probably like one of my main career highlights. It was just such a surreal sort of sequence of events that led to it. Back in 2012, we'd finished like a 3-year research project into what became our marketing framework, and had a process for approaching marketing, brought it out, and the kind of industry just went, yeah, everyone's got one of these. You know, it's what do you want from us? And it was really deflating at the time. So the 2012 Olympics happened, and there was a real issue getting tickets, sort of like availability. The website kept crashing, loads of empty seats. And I'd built a program to get tickets or to spot tickets for the gymnastics for my fiance. So we decided to plug it into Twitter and promote it as a bit of a showcase project for what we could do. And sort of fast forward through the games. By the end of it, worldwide coverage, reached, I think, more people than the Sun newspaper, #1 technology story over the games. And at the very end of the games, the BBC, so Rory Cellan-Jones, did a social media Olympics, they called it. And the gold medal for the team went to the official Team DE, the official Team GB campaign.
I was going to say, in Germany, all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's it. So the official campaign, and then the silver medal went to us, and that's where that came from. And we've dined out on it ever since.
So that must be, as one would describe, a feather in your cap. Does that enable you to get more business, or is that just a nice over the dinner table kind of conversation?
I think it's really helps with credibility. So those initial conversations where people, there's a lot of skepticism in the industry, and arguably rightly so. And it just helps sort of diffuse that. It's the one that it feels weird because it was, what we're looking at 8 years ago, and it's still the one that everybody loves and everyone talks about. But I sort of sometimes feel like that guy who's like, yeah, back when I was a kid, we did this thing that was really good. And we've done other sort of stuff since then. But, that's the one that it was a once in a lifetime thing. It was such a great opportunity. And to be a part of something that was so special as well as the Olympics, and to be recognized for that was just mind blowing. Not just for me, but for like the whole team who worked on it.
Yeah, it's certainly a nice accolade to have. If I'm right, DigitallyEngaged enables marketers to consume what I would describe as unbiased advice on all things digital. And it also provides marketing education. But what made you believe that there was a need for this in the first place?
It stems from there's a couple of problems in the marketing industry that I talk about, and one of them's bias, and it's not sort of like nefarious, like people are misleading or anything. It's just the industry's got so fragmented. We've ended up in this kind of, if all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail situation. So it's like SEO consultants, everything, they see everything from an SEO point of view, social media consultants, everything from a social media point of view, and that's where their experience is, and ultimately, usually as well, that's what they're trying to sell. So what we found is it makes it really hard to navigate, really hard to sort of take this top-down view of like, how does all this fit together? And that sort of confusion, uncertainty is a real hurdle for clients, for businesses out there. And way back in 2009, that's how we sort of came into the industry. That's what we wanted to solve. And the framework we built was designed to solve that, it doesn't matter how inexperienced a marketer you are, to give you a process you can follow where everything just fits into place. And all of the things we do come from that. So the advice, the support, the training, everything stems from solving that problem.
How does that align, if it does at all, with the kind of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, which is kind of the de facto go-to for marketing education?
Yeah, so I don't want to be too. I'm not critical of them. When I say I don't want to be too critical of them, that isn't like a loaded thing. It's more we've kind of done our own thing. There's been events where we've supported them, so they've been very kind with some of their descriptions of me and us and what we do, and we very much do our own thing, and we don't have a view of them that's negative. A lot of people sort of talk them down. A lot of people love them, and we just kind of exist next to them. We're not filling the same space. We're not a membership organization or anything.
Okay, so is it like a educational course, or is it kind of dip in and dip out?
Yeah, so it's not really in that kind of vein. We're a think tank at our heart. That's what we describe ourselves as, and we very much work with clients, other marketing companies, to do research into the psychology of buying, how the internet and technology has changed the fundamental way that we approach like making buying decisions, and then how all the bits and pieces fit into that. So we tend to work on we did have an agency side, and we did have a franchise side that didn't last very long. We didn't like it, and it's very much project led. And it's only recently, so in the past 6 months, with everything that's happened, that we've made this kind of shift over to, look, let's just, instead of keeping all this research for the clients that we're working with, let's make it more public facing, and let's build sort of a learning resource around that. So we are the part of it. We are building a course out that people can do. It's like an introduction to our approach. And that's really just to make it accessible to as many people as we can without being limited by like a training classroom or something.
So if you don't have an agency element to your business any longer,
Yes.
how do you manage to keep the content up to date? Because there's so many changes that happen with the technologies and digital marketing overall over the last 10 years. So that must be quite challenging.
Yes, and we have a small number of sort of private clients. So we don't have like a public facing agency where we're like, hey, we'll build you a Facebook page, or we'll run your campaign for you. Just come and approach us. We'll give you a budget, tells you budget, we'll give you a brief. We have a small number of clients that luckily give us a lot of flexibility with what we can do with their budgets and what we can experiment with. And we invest quite heavily in just research pieces as well. So like if we do this, what happens? If we do that, what happens? What do these people think? What do they people think? And that's where our focus is on. Our focus is on really the understanding side of it rather than just delivering a service. And I think it really comes down to that, knowing how. So with changes that come through, so like social commerce is a big one, sort of like the past year. And knowing how that fits into the picture is what we do, rather than necessarily here's the button to click to do social selling or social commerce. And that's what we give the people we work with. It's that context to say, okay, this plays this role in my wider strategy.
Am I right in thinking that you don't actually go and teach, I don't know, Adobe or maybe Final Cut Pro or anything like that? It's much more of an umbrella kind of feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the sort of things that a lot of people ask us is about like our own social media presence. And it's a really good way of highlighting the point is, up until now, we don't particularly have one, because the kind of clients we work with, we wouldn't attract through that. So in the same way we don't do leaflets, we don't do social media. We have never built it out. That's changing right now as we sort of refocus on SMEs and sort of smaller consultants and supporting them and helping them with new social channels, new community manager. But it's really a case of, how do you choose the right things? How do you choose what's really effective for your business, your campaign, and how your customers buy from you? And then focusing in on those. And the context around that is what we do. So we don't just specialize in a certain tactical strategy.
Tell me a little bit about the digital engagement framework that you offer, because that seems to be an all-encompassing element built up of lots of different things. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, at its heart, it's a way of thinking about marketing. And one of the things we found back sort of like at the start of the decade when we were doing our research was the internet hasn't just changed how we buy in the terms of we now have e-commerce stores, we now have Facebook. It's created a real fundamental shift in how we make buying decisions on a subconscious level. And I give you a quick example. If, say, 15, 20 years ago, you were buying a TV, you probably would have gone to Dixon's or Rumbelows, if you're old enough to remember that. Shout out to Rumbelows. And, but you'd have gone down there, you'd have spoken to probably a salesman back then, got some brochures, had a look at the TVs, and then maybe repeated it a few times and ultimately bought one if that's what you were going to do. So,
or rented one in those days.
Or rented one. Yeah, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, but absolutely. And fundamentally what you've done is you've contacted the retailer or the seller, done your research and made a buying decision. They're the 3 steps. And a lot of sort of like marketing was geared around like handling objections, because it was about having that conversation and converting it into a sale. If you do that today with the internet, you'll probably start by going on Amazon, looking at reviews, looking at forums, looking at review websites. You build a short list of TVs, then depending on the criteria.
You're listening to the shortened version of this podcast. To listen to the full version, visit your favourite podcast player and search for Webtrends Optimize or The Big Lift.